We grasp at everything, but catch nothing except wind. To forbid us anything is to make us have a mind for it. If I am pressed to say why I loved him, I feel it can only be explained by replying, because it was him, because it was me. Notice what you eat, and you will find in it the taste of your own flesh. I do not willingly alight when I am once on horseback, for it is the place where, whether well or sick, I find myself most at ease. For seeing philosophy has not been able to find out any way to tranquility that is good in common, let everyone seek it in particular. I know well what I am fleeing from, but not what I am in search of. We are more unhappy to see people ahead of us than happy to see people behind us. One may be humble out of pride. Every other knowledge is harmful to him who does not have knowledge of goodness. God's justice and his power are inseparable. 'Tis in vain we invoke his power in an unjust cause. When I play with my cat, who knows if I am not a pastime to her more than she is to me? Man is forming thousands of ridiculous relations between himself and God. Rejoice in the things that are present. All else is beyond thee. A great marriage would be between a blind wife and a deaf husband. There are no truths, only moments of clarity passing for answers. How many things served us yesterday for articles of faith, which today are fables for us? Children's games are hardly games. Children are never more serious than when they play. The soul has the greatest interest in all the rest, and there are some vices that have something, if a man may so say, of generous in them. I feel myself importuned by an error of the soul that displeases me. Great wits are ruined by their own proper force and quickness. A soul clear from prejudice has a marvelous advance towards tranquility and repose. There is no sense that has not a mighty dominion. I could wish to have a more perfect knowledge of things, but I will not buy it so dear as it will cost. Life in itself is neither good nor evil. It is the scene of good or evil, as you make it. And if you have lived a day, you have seen all. I design everything by chance and in fear. What shall be from this time forward will be but a half being, and no more me. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Let us give nature a chance. She knows her business better than we do. We are all convention. Convention carries us away, and we neglect the substance of things. Once conform, once do what others do because they do it, and a kind of lethargy steals over all the finer senses of the soul. The most fruitful and natural exercise for our minds is, in my opinion, conversation. There is no knowledge so hard to acquire as the knowledge of how to live this life well and naturally. Though we may be learned by the help of another's knowledge, we can never be wise but by our own wisdom. I quote others only in order the better to express myself. He who establishes his argument by noise and command shows that his reason is weak. Ambition sufficiently plagues her proselytes by keeping them always in show, like the statue of a public place. There is no wish more natural than the wish to know. It is good to rub and polish our brain against that of others. We cannot be wise with other men's wisdom. A wise man sees as much as he ought, not as much as he can. Nothing is so firmly believed as what we least know. It is the mind that maketh good oil, that maketh wretch or happy, rich or poor. The most manifest sign of wisdom is a continual cheerfulness. Reason has so many forms that we do not know which to choose. Experiment has no fewer. Malice sucks up the greatest part of its own venom and poisons itself. Learned we may be with another man's learning. We can only be wise with wisdom of our own. We find nothing more sweet in life than quiet repose and a profound sleep, without dreams. I listen with attention to the judgment of all men. Men are not agreed about any one thing, not even that heaven is over our heads. A liar would be brave toward God, while he is a coward toward men. For a lie faces God and shrinks from man. A man may be humbled through vainglory. If I am to die and leave you alive, the gods alone only know whether it will go better with you or with me. The man who thinks he knows something does not know yet what knowing is. I am at home responsible for whatever goes amiss. Since I would rather make of him an able man than a learned man, I would also urge that care be taken to choose a guide with a well-made rather than a well-filled head. Man is certainly crazy. He could not make a mite, and he makes gods by the dozen. He who fears he will suffer, already suffers from his fear. Satiety comes of too frequent repetition, and he who will not give himself leisure to be thirsty can never find the true pleasure of drinking. By the assistance of my conscience, which was not only at peace within itself, but elevated, and I did not find any reason to complain of myself. I see men ordinarily more eager to discover a reason for things than to find out whether the things are so. A wise man never loses anything if he has himself. The worst condition of humans is when they lose knowledge and control of themselves. I write to keep from going mad from the contradictions I find among mankind. To lament that we shall not be alive 100 years hence is the same folly as to be sorry we were not alive 100 years ago. Live as long as you please. You will strike nothing off the time you will have to spend dead. The great and glorious masterpiece of man is to live with purpose. Marriage may be compared to a cage. The birds outside frantic to get in, and those inside frantic to get out. Our life is composed, like the harmony of the world, of contrary things. There is nothing so extreme that is not allowed by the custom of some nation or other. Nothing fixes a thing so intensely in the memory as the wish to forget it. Lend yourself to others, but give yourself to yourself. I cannot without grief see so much as an innocent beast pursued and killed that has no defense, and from which we have received no offense at all. If ordinary people complain that I speak too much of myself, I complain that they do not even think of themselves. There is no pleasure to me without communication. Whether you find satisfaction in life depends not on your tale of years, but on your will. When I the most strictly and religiously confess myself, I find that the best virtue I have has in it some tincture of vice. I am content to have been destined to be present therein, and thereby to instruct myself. The worst of my actions or conditions seem not so ugly unto me. I find it both ugly and base not to dare to avouch for them. I have enough to do to comfort myself, without having to console others. Thoughts enough in my head. On the highest throne in the world, we still sit only on our own bottom. Fashion is the science of appearances, and it inspires one with the desire to seem rather than to be. I find that the best goodness I have has some tincture of vice. No one is exempt from speaking nonsense. The only misfortune is to do it solemnly. It is not without reason that we are taught to consider sleep as a resemblance of death. He who would teach men to die would teach them to live. I want death to find me planting my cabbages, but careless of death, and still more of my unfinished garden. We trouble our life by thoughts about death, and our death by thoughts about life. Death is terrible to Cicero, coveted by Cato, indifferent to Socrates.